Get the hell out of my house.
Wait! Listen! She's...
I know who she is. Hence, I told her to leave.
Seto.
The woman rose to her feet gracefully and glided over to him. She was as sweet-looking as he remembered, but he wouldn't fall for it.
Seto! Don't be that way! Big brother, she's our auntie.
I know who she is, biologically. But she's also one of the two-timing snakes who took our inheritance and left us in that rat hole of an orphanage. You were too young to remember, Mokuba, but this woman helped ruin our lives. I won't see that happen again.
I asked her about that. Just hear her out, please.
You must believe that I never wanted to hurt you. Were it up to me, I would have opened my home to you two beautiful children when my sister died. I loved you both, every bit as much as I loved her. But my husband at the time, Dani, wouldn't hear of it. He was so very violent. Always shouting, always screaming. It had taken many years for me to summon the courage to leave him. But now I have, and the first thing I've done is find you two. I dared to hope you could find it in your hearts to forgive me, and that we could start over.
Mokuba moved quickly to comfort the crying woman, putting his arms around her snugly. Seto could only think how that kind heart would get him into trouble one of these days.
Do you really expect me to believe that?
I really don't. But I had to try. You boys are all I have left of my dear sister. You and this. When I left Dani, I lost everything. This was all I was able to keep with me.
Seto didn't need to look at the photograph to know what it was. The look on Mokuba's face told him everything. Unlike his brother, Seto had some vague memories of their parents. They grew cloudier by the day as he neglected them, trying his best not to ever think of life before the orphanage. But one thing he never forgot was how much like their mother Mokuba looked. She too was a sweet and soft-spoken person who saw the good in everything and hope where there was none. And she was so, so beautiful. Seto didn't take heavily after either parents physically, but he knew that he had his mother's complexion and his father's brown hair and height. When Seto was very small, his father had reminded him of a newborn giraffe with those long limbs that he wasn't sure what to do with. He was rough on the outside, but kind and giving within, the kind of person who would give up his seat on the train or pull over to help a stranger whose car had broken down. All in all, what memories Seto had were positive. He couldn't recall anyone having a bad word to say about his parents, and it had always seemed unfair that they, two innocent people who had never hurt anyone in their lives, had to die while human equivalent of scum like Gozaburo Kaiba remained on the earth long enough to do the kind of damage they did. But Mokuba, even if he remembered anything at all, probably had little more than a few blurry images to keep two entire people alive in his memory. Seto never spoke of their parents, perhaps to the younger's detriment. But Mokuba never exactly asked him to either. Seto only assumed that Mokuba had moved on, but seeing the visceral reaction he had to their picture made him question that.
They're so beautiful. Look, you have Dad's nose. Thank you. I had no idea that I looked so much like Mom.
You don't just look like her, Mokuba. You're every bit like her in your nature, too. You have been since you were a baby.
Can I copy this?
Of course, dearest. Why don't you lead the way?
I told you to leave once already, and I don't like to repeat myself.
Seto!
It's okay, Moki. Your brother's right to be upset. Here, why don't I copy this for you and bring it around some other time, once you've been able to process all this?
Sure, she was defending him, but Seto couldn't stop himself from getting a little annoyed when she called him Moki. That was his nickname, and Noah's sometimes. True, he hadn't used it in years, but that wasn't the point.
All right, but promise you'll come by soon.
I promise. I'll see you boys soon, okay?
Then she left, and once she did, Mokuba rounded on his brother.
Why were you so mean?
Why weren't you? You're not to see that woman again, understand?
Seto braced himself for an argument, but it never came. Instead, Mokuba reached out and touched the locket Seto wore around his neck, the one that was identical to his own.
You act so stoic and lonely, but I know you better. Family means more to you than anything, and Aunt Lamia is family, whatever else she may be. She needs our help. We can't just abandon her.
We're not. She abandoned us.
Seto couldn't stay in this conversation for much longer, or else one of two things was likely to happen. Either he'd yell at his brother or give in. Maybe both. So instead, he turned and walked away from it all.